The hospital lobby smelled like lemon floor cleaner and quiet worry. It was past midnight, and the lights were soft the way they get when most people are asleep. A struggling dad stood at the front desk with his little boy pressed close to his side. The boy's head rested against the dad's coat, warm and a bit heavy, the way children get when they are tired but trying to be brave. The dad spoke in a calm voice because he knew that calm voices make hard moments softer. He said the boy had felt feverish at home, and his breathing sounded a little tight, and he did not want to take any chances. He had learned that lesson long ago: if you are not sure, check. It is easier to rest after you have made sure. The receptionist nodded, typed, and asked for a few details. The dad spelled their last name slowly, then gave an address, then a phone number that had changed twice in the past year. He still felt the small ache that comes when you speak out loud about things that show a shaky season. But he kept his tone even, and he smiled when he could. The boy watched the fish tank beside the desk. A friendly orange fish swam past a pretend castle, and the boy tracked it with his eyes. "He looks like a gold coin," the boy whispered, and it made the dad smile in a real, bright way. They sat down in the waiting area. A row of chairs faced a wall with a poster about washing your hands and another about kindness at work. The dad found a seat with a little space on both sides, a place where his son could curl up. He took off the boy's hat and touched his forehead. "Warm, yes, but not too hot." He breathed out, slow. He took out a small water bottle and held a straw to the boy's lips. "Sip, buddy," he said, and the boy sipped, cheeks puffing in and out like a tiny bellows. In the corner, a television with no sound showed two doctors in a commercial pointing at a chart. Someone had left a children's picture book on the chair nearby. The dad pulled it over. He read aloud in a low, easy voice. He added details that were not on the page to make the boy laugh. The bear in the story became a polite bear who said please to the honey jar. The small bird became the bear's teacher who carried a tiny briefcase. The boy laughed and coughed at the same time, then covered his mouth the way he had been taught. The dad gave him a proud little nod and reached into his pocket for a tissue. When he pulled the tissue out, his old wallet came out with it and fell into his lap. The wallet's leather was worn thin at the corners, like it had lived in a back pocket for a long time. He slid it back in place without looking at it, and kept reading. A nurse came by with a rolling cart and took the boy's temperature, then clipped a small pulse oximeter on his finger. The device blinked and lit the boy's hand with a soft glow. The boy's eyes widened. "It's a spaceship," he whispered, and the nurse smiled. She told the dad that they were busy, but they would try to get them into triage soon. The dad thanked her in a way that sounded like more than a thank you. The nurse heard the weight in it and nodded. She put a small sticker on the boy's shirt, just a star, nothing big, and it made him sit up a little taller. Two paramedics wheeled past with an empty stretcher and a folded blanket. The dad felt his shoulders tighten and then ease. He reminded himself that many things happen in a hospital at night, and not all of them are scary. He watched the clock above the door. He was used to watching clocks these days. Jobs start at certain times, buses arrive when they arrive, and you learn to hold your breath between minutes. When the boy leaned against him again, he wrapped his arm around the small shoulders and gave a gentle sway. The motion calmed the boy and calmed the dad too. He kept his voice light and told one of their favorite small stories. It was about a boy who liked to count street lights on long car rides and a dad who made up names for each light. "That one is Lucky Penny," he said, pointing to a ceiling light. "And that one is Brave Turtle. And that one is Friendly Cloud." The boy's mouth curved up, slow and sweet. He tried to repeat the names. The dad loved this simple game because it did not cost anything and still made the world feel full. A family across the room smiled. The mother there was holding a baby, and the father had an empty coffee cup that said night shift in a tired kind of way. The receptionist called a different name. A teenager with a sprained wrist stood up and walked toward the door to triage. The dad looked down at the forms in his lap. He had filled in everything except the line that asked about insurance. He did have something, but it was the kind that makes you read a lot of fine print and call twice to confirm. He would call tomorrow. Tonight he wrote a short note on that line, just enough to be honest and clear. He did not like asking for help. He did not like being the person who did not have all the papers in perfect shape. But he had promised himself that he would do what needed to be done for his son, even if it meant standing in rooms where pride feels tight. An older volunteer wearing a blue vest brought over a small basket with children's item stickers, a tiny coloring set, and a soft little bear with a ribbon. The boy chose the bear. He put the ribbon to his cheek. The dad thanked the volunteer and asked if there was a place to get warm water. The volunteer pointed to a small station with a kettle and tea bags and said he would bring hot water in a paper cup. The dad felt gratitude rise in his chest. It felt like a steadying hand on a shaking table. When the water came, he let it cool and then let the boy hold the cup with both hands just for the warmth. People moved through the lobby in quiet lines. A custodian guided a floor machine across the tiles in slow, smooth arcs. The machine hummed in a soft way, like someone singing far away. The boy watched it with interest and then looked up at the wall behind the front desk. There were photos there, nurses, doctors, and people in suits. The boy liked pictures where people stood together, smiling. He asked questions in a whisper. Do they all work here? Do they eat lunch together? Do they have birthdays? The dad answered in the same quiet voice. Yes, they work here. No, they do not always eat together. Yes, everyone has birthdays. Even hospitals have birthdays, in a way. They call it anniversaries. The boy reached for the dad's pocket and tapped it. Can I see the picture? He asked, meaning the old photo the dad kept. The dad paused. He always paused at that request, not because he did not want to show it, but because the picture carried a lot of feelings. He opened his wallet and slid out a small, faded photograph wrapped in a receipt to keep it safe. In the picture, a young woman in a college sweatshirt stood on a sunny lawn with her hair pulled back and her eyes bright. The boy knew the picture well. He smiled at it, a small private smile, the kind you give to something that feels like a secret treasure. The dad let him hold it for a few seconds, then put it back and patted the pocket, gentle as a promise. Just then a group of administrators came through the main doors. They were not loud, but they moved with a kind of purpose that said they knew where they were going. One of them, a woman in a dark, neat suit, spoke to the security guard with a soft clarity. She had a kind face. Her eyes were alert but kind, the way you want the person in charge to look. The boy noticed her. Children notice faces. They notice warmth. The woman gave a small smile to the volunteer in the blue vest and thanked him for staying late. Her voice carried just enough to hear a word or two: appreciate, team, support. The dad looked down at his son and smoothed the boy's hair. He was not daydreaming, he was counting. He was always counting now, dollars, hours, days until the first of the month, nights until the next school event. He counted the number of times he had said we're okay in the last week and tried to keep the number honest. He did not want to live by numbers alone, though. So he also counted blessings, a kind nurse, a warm cup, a sticker star, a laugh that sounded like it still had light in it. He added one more blessing to the list, the boy's small hand, steady in his own. A triage nurse opened the door and called another name. The dad felt the small tug of patience again. He checked the boy's cheeks with the back of his hand. The warmth had not grown. That was good. He glanced at the pamphlets on the table beside them. One was about community programs. Another was about a training course for people who wanted to work in hospital support roles. His eyes paused there, then moved on. It was not the time to think about that. Or maybe it was. He folded the pamphlet and slipped it into his coat pocket, not making a big thing out of it, just keeping it close. The boy rested his head on the dad's shoulder. He asked a quiet question that children ask when they trust the answer. Are we going to be okay? The dad did not rush. He knew that the way you answer a question can build a road or build a wall. He wanted a road. Yes, he said, and his voice was clear. We are going to be okay. We are careful. We are together. We ask for help when we need it. We take one step, then another. The boy listened, and the answer seemed to be enough for now. He closed his eyes and let out a small breath, the kind of breath that means a person is still awake but letting go of worry. The receptionist called a name that sounded close to theirs and then corrected it. The dad smiled at the mix-up. He did not correct her from across the room. He waited. He was getting better at waiting. He thought about the things that had brought them here tonight, a warm forehead, a short tightness in the breath, a father who kept the promise to check. He also thought about the morning that would come. There would be cereal and a lunchbox and a school drop-off and maybe a nap for him if he could find a quiet hour. The future did not need to be grand to be good. It could be simple and steady. A volunteer switched the television to a channel with nature scenes. A waterfall poured down rocks that looked smooth as soap. A deer dipped its head to drink. The boy opened one eye to look and then closed it again. The dad rubbed small circles on his back. He wanted to carry the boy everywhere, forever. He also wanted the boy to grow strong and walk his own steps. Parenting, he knew, was a dance between holding and letting go, and tonight, holding was the step. The woman in the dark suit passed by again, walking with a doctor and a nurse manager. She kept her voice low, but it was clear she was asking about staff rest and safe schedules, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. The dad saw the way the nurse manager's shoulders eased as they talked. He liked that. The boy, eyes half open, watched the woman's face as she spoke. She smiled at the nurse manager, then at the volunteer, then at the custodian. When she reached the front desk, she leaned in to listen instead of talking first. The dad noticed small things like that. They were not flashy, but they told the truth about who a person is. A door opened again. This time the triage nurse called their name, clearly and kindly. The dad stood, easing the boy up with careful hands. The boy slid off the chair and held the small bear by its ribbon. The dad slung the worn backpack over one shoulder. He picked up the forms. He lifted his chin, just a bit, in the way a person does when it is time to move forward. They walked toward the triage door together, step by step, matching pace. On the way, they passed the wall with the photos, the one full of faces in scrubs and suits. The boy glanced at it, then at the dad, but said nothing yet. The dad opened the door for him and made a little game out of it. After you, sir. The boy tried not to smile and failed. Inside the triage room, the lights were softer, the chairs were closer, and the nurse had a voice like a warm blanket. She asked the boy his name first, then asked what brought them in, and she spoke to him like he was a person with thoughts, not a problem to solve. The dad felt another small bit of tension fall away. They sat down. The nurse took notes. The dad answered in simple words. He did not reach for big explanations. He did not try to make the night into a story with a dramatic arc. He gave the facts. The boy breathed. The pulse oximeter blinked on his finger. Somewhere out in the lobby, the floor machine hummed again, and a fish swam past the little castle and back into the pretend cave. Life moved in small, steady loops. The nurse said they would see a doctor soon. She offered a blanket. The boy took it, tucking it under his chin. The dad thanked her, and the thanks sounded easier now. He looked at his son and saw that the color in his cheeks was no worse. He let out one more slow breath. It felt like the night was holding them the way a hand holds a small bird, careful, gentle, with a promise to keep harm away. The dad rested his palm on the boy's back and waited for the next door to open. In his pocket, the old photo lay flat and quiet, like a secret that was waiting for its time. Outside the triage room, footsteps came and went, and somewhere in the halls, a kind voice said, "We'll take good care of them." And for now, that was enough. The boy shifted under the soft hospital blanket. His eyes wandered, half awake, half curious. The dad sat upright beside him, trying to keep both his mind and his shoulders steady. He was used to waiting rooms, to silence stretched across long minutes, but this time was different. This time his son had pointed at someone, a passing woman, and spoken words that made the whole air around them pause. "That's Mommy," the boy had said, his small finger straight and sure. The dad froze when he heard it. He blinked slowly, unsure if his ears had played a trick. He glanced down at his son, who was now hugging the small hospital bear, and then looked toward the direction where the woman had walked. The memory of the faded photo in his wallet pressed against him like a weight. He had always known this day might come when his son would ask more questions, when the past he had tried to fold away neatly would unfold itself. But he had not expected it here, in the middle of a hospital lobby at midnight. The boy tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, I saw her. She looks like the picture you have." The dad's hand moved slowly to his pocket. He pulled out the old photo. The edges were curled, and the colors had faded, but the smile in the picture was still alive. A young woman, laughing in the sunlight, hair loose and eyes bright. His son leaned closer. "See? It's the same smile," the boy said in a whisper, as though he was sharing a secret that needed care. The dad's throat tightened. He wanted to say something that would calm, something simple, but words felt too heavy. He tucked the photo back inside and gave a small nod. "You've got sharp eyes, buddy," he murmured. The boy returned to hugging his bear, but his gaze kept drifting to the hallway where the woman had gone. A nurse passed with a clipboard, her shoes squeaking lightly against the polished floor. She noticed the dad's thoughtful look and gave him a polite smile. He smiled back, but his mind was turning fast. Could it really be her? After all these years? He had read her name on the wall display earlier, the CEO of the hospital network. It seemed impossible, like two worlds that had no reason to meet again colliding in a quiet waiting area. The dad leaned back in the chair, replaying the last few minutes. She had walked by with her team, her step steady, her tone respectful. She had thanked the staff, not in a showy way but in a way that sounded real. It matched the kind of person he remembered from long ago. Not just ambitious, but thoughtful too. Still, she had been gone from his life for years. He had chosen not to reach out after everything changed. Pride had made him silent, and life had made him busy. He had been raising his son alone, with simple routines and quiet strength. The boy broke his thoughts. "Daddy, if she is Mommy, why is she here?" The dad smoothed his son's hair, buying time. "Some people work in big jobs, buddy. Sometimes they work in places where we don't expect them." He hesitated, then added gently, "Maybe she's helping people here." The boy seemed satisfied for the moment. He yawned, pulling the blanket closer. Minutes stretched, and the dad wondered what to do. Should he ignore it? Pretend his son's words were just a child's imagination? Or should he face the truth and see if it was real? His heart leaned toward the second choice, but fear of being wrong, of opening an old chapter, slowed him. He noticed movement at the far end of the lobby. The same woman had returned, this time without the large group. She spoke quietly with a security guard, then turned toward the front desk. The boy sat up straight again, pointing before lowering his hand quickly. "Daddy," he whispered, "that's her." The dad's pulse picked up. He told himself to breathe. He did not want to create a scene, not here, not in front of his son. He waited until the woman's conversation at the desk was finished. She glanced around, her eyes scanning the room. For a brief moment, her gaze brushed past him and paused. Recognition flickered in her expression, a small shift that could be missed if someone wasn't watching closely. The dad stood slowly, placing a steady hand on his son's shoulder. He did not rush forward, but when the woman turned to leave, he stepped closer, enough to catch her attention. She stopped. For a heartbeat, both of them were quiet. Then he spoke her name, softly, carefully, as though testing if it still belonged to her. Her eyes widened. She blinked, then took a small step closer. "It's been a long time," she said, her voice low. The boy looked up at both of them, his eyes wide. He clutched his bear but did not say anything yet. The woman glanced at the boy, then back at the dad. There were questions in her eyes, but she didn't press them all at once. Instead, she gestured toward a quieter hallway just off the lobby. "Can we talk for a moment?" she asked. The dad hesitated. He didn't want his son to feel left out, but the boy tugged his hand and whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. I want to hear too." So the three of them moved toward the side corridor, away from the waiting area noise. The lights were softer there, and the hum of machines felt distant. The dad held his son's hand while facing the woman he had not seen in years. She looked at the boy again, her expression softening. "He's yours," she said quietly, as if she had known before she even asked. The dad gave a small nod. "Ours," he corrected gently. The boy tilted his head. "Daddy says Mommy is far away. But you're here now." The woman's eyes grew shiny, but she blinked the feeling away. She crouched slightly, meeting the boy at eye level. "I am here," she said, her voice calm and kind. The dad watched, unsure what this moment would grow into. The past was heavy, but the present was alive, standing in this small corridor with hospital walls around them. For the first time in years, their paths had crossed, and the boy had seen what even he had not dared to say out loud. The woman stood again, folding her hands as if steadying herself. She turned to the dad. "We need to talk. But first let's make sure he's okay. That's what matters most tonight." The dad nodded slowly. He could feel the old photo pressing against his pocket again, no longer just a memory, but a thread connecting past and present. The boy looked between them, sensing something important was happening. He didn't have the words for it yet, but he smiled as though he understood more than anyone realized. And as the three of them stood there, a quiet shift filled the air. The past was no longer gone. It was here, alive, waiting to be spoken aloud. The quiet corridor felt like a small world inside the busy hospital. The lights were warm but not bright. The hum of the air system made a soft, steady sound. The woman, the dad, and the little boy stood close together for a moment, unsure of the next step. The boy shifted his blanket over one shoulder, holding the small hospital bear by its ribbon. He looked up with open eyes, the kind that wait for gentle truth. The woman took a slow breath. She had a calm way of standing, feet grounded, shoulders easy, voice low. "First," she said, looking at the boy, "we'll make sure you feel better. That is the most important thing tonight." Then she turned to the dad. "May I walk with you to the exam room?" The dad nodded. He did not want to make things bigger than they needed to be, not here, not now. "Yes," he said. "Thank you." They moved together toward a small family room where a nurse had said they could wait before the doctor came. A volunteer had placed a box of crayons and a few blank papers on a tiny table. The boy brightened at the sight. Children know how to use small gifts to make the world friendly. He sat, pulled the paper close, and drew a big sun in the corner, then 3 stick figures under it. He drew a taller figure with short lines for hair, a smaller figure in the middle, and another taller figure with longer lines for hair. The woman watched quietly. Her face softened. "That's a very good sun," she said. The boy kept drawing. "It makes everything warm," he said. Then he glanced up. "Do you like drawing?" "I do," she answered. "I once drew a whole city on the back of a notebook page because I was bored at a bus station." She smiled at the memory. It had a tiny bakery and a tiny park and a tiny hospital with a big, kind heart. The boy nodded like this was a good answer. The dad listened too, and something in his chest loosened. Simple talk. Soft, real, not heavy. A nurse peeked in. "Doctor will be with you in a few minutes," she said. Her eyes moved between the three of them, reading the quiet connection in the room. She smiled and left the door slightly open. The woman looked at the dad. "I don't want to disturb the process," she said. "I can let the team do their work. I just wanted to be nearby in case you needed anything explained." "We appreciate that," the dad said. He paused, searching for a shape to put around the ears. "It's a lot." "I know," she said softly. "For me too." The boy colored in the sun and then held the crayon above the paper like a pilot holding a small plane. He looked from one grown-up to the other. "What's your favorite color?" he asked, as if this question could draw a bridge. "Blue," the woman answered at once. "Ocean blue." She tilted her head with a playful challenge. "Yours?" "Green," the boy said. "Like the park grass when we fly a kite." The dad added, "And he wears a green backpack to school. It has a tiny zipper he can always fix on his own." "Sometimes," the boy said, proud and honest. He pressed hard on the crayon and made a green stripe across the paper like a field. He glanced up again, curiosity shining. "Do you like pancakes?" The woman laughed softly. "I love them. With strawberries if I can find some. How about you?" "I like them with bananas," the boy said, tapping the paper. He drew a circle that might have been a pancake or the moon. "Daddy makes them on Saturdays." The dad smiled, a real one. "It's our small tradition." The woman breathed out, and the sound was almost a sigh of thanks. "Traditions keep the week steady," she said. He nodded. "They do." A light knock came, and the doctor entered with kind eyes and a neat notepad. She introduced herself to the boy first, then to the dad, and then to the woman. The doctor did not ask for any details about the connection in the room. She was here for the child, and everyone felt grateful for that. She listened to the boy's chest, watched his breathing, checked his temperature again, and asked simple questions. "Any sore throat?" "A little," the boy said. "Any big coughs?" "Sometimes," he answered. "Any trouble running at recess?" He thought. "Only when I try to be the fastest person in the whole school," he said, and the doctor smiled. After a few minutes, the doctor spoke to the dad. She used easy words. "I think this is a mild chest tightness from a small infection or a change in the air. It should be okay with simple care at home. I'll give you a clear plan." She explained rest, warm drinks, a small inhaler for comfort if needed, and a follow-up if anything changed. "You did the right thing by coming in," she added. "You checked. You were careful." "Careful." The dad felt the word land like a steady weight in his hands. He liked it. It matched how he wanted to parent. The doctor wrote a few notes and left a copy of instructions with the dad. The woman listened quietly, not trying to direct or hurry anything, only nodding when something needed a nod. When the doctor stepped out, the woman said, "Thank you," with quiet respect. The doctor nodded back, a small, professional warmth passing between them. The boy held his paper up for the doctor to see before she left. "This is us," he said, pointing at the three figures under the sun. The doctor smiled. "Looks like a good team," she said. After the door closed, the room held a soft stillness. The dad let out a slow breath. "I feel better," he said, honest and simple. Me too, the woman said. The boy pressed his hands flat on the paper to smooth it. He looked at the woman's hand as she reached for a chair. On her wrist, there was a thin bracelet with a tiny charm, simple, polished, familiar. The boy's eyes dropped to his own locket, a small oval on a thin chain. He held it up. I have one too, he said. Daddy says it keeps good memories close. The woman's expression shifted, something tender moving behind her eyes. I remember that style, she said quietly, looking at the dad. You once gave me one as a graduation gift. I kept the idea, the dad replied. When he was little, I wanted him to have something small and steady. The boy turned the locket over in his fingers. There's a tiny picture inside, he said. It is old. The dad looked at the woman, feeling the moment become clear. Your picture, he said, gently, as if laying down a bridge plank by plank. From years ago. The woman nodded, eyes bright but steady. She did not rush to fill the space with apologies or excuses. Instead, she placed her hands on her knees and spoke with care. I want to say this right, she began. I left for a new job and then another. I moved fast. My number changed. I told myself I had sent an address, but the letter came back. I tried again, and then time pushed forward. I let the speed of my work become the excuse for everything. She swallowed and continued, I should have tried harder. I am sorry for the distance. I respect what you have done. I want to do better from this moment on. The dad listened without interrupting. He looked down at the instructions the doctor had left. Clear steps. He liked clear steps. He looked up again. Thank you, he said at last. For saying it in a way that is simple and honest. The boy shifted in his chair, sensing that adults were building something careful and new. He did not want it to break. He lifted his paper. Can we all sign the picture, he asked. So we remember this night when we were a team. The woman smiled, a soft, real smile. Yes, she said. I would like that. They each signed their names at the bottom of the drawing, small and neat. The boy added a short line under the names that looked like a road. We are going somewhere, he said, pleased with his own idea. The woman reached into her jacket pocket for a tiny notepad and a pen. She wrote a number and a name. This is my direct line, she said to the dad. It rings right to my phone. I also wrote the number for our patient assistance coordinator. If it's okay with you, I would like to help set up a plan for the bill. Not a gift. A plan. Something that respects your part and lets me contribute too. The dad looked down at the note. He did not love asking for help, but he loved his son more than any feeling that asked him to stand alone. A plan is good, he said. I want a shared path, not a favor that fades. Agreed, she said. He slipped the note into his wallet, right behind the old photo. The photo felt less like a secret now and more like a bridge to a steady present. He thought of all the things he had counted, dollars, hours, days. Maybe now he could count shared steps too. The boy looked at the clock. Is it almost tomorrow? He asked. Almost, the dad said. We'll be home before the sun wakes. The woman glanced at the nurse's station through the glass. Would you like a warm tea for the road? She asked. They keep a kettle by the volunteer desk. I can get some honey. That would be nice, the dad said. Thank you. While she stepped out briefly, the boy leaned into his dad's side. She is kind, he said. She is, the dad answered. He kept his voice simple and true. She also worked very hard for a long time. And sometimes hard work stretches time in ways people do not expect. We are going to take careful steps now. The boy nodded, satisfied for the moment. Can we have pancakes tomorrow? He asked. Yes, the dad said. Banana ones. The woman returned with 2 paper cups, one with tea and honey, one with warm water. She set the warm water beside the boy so he could hold it and feel comfort in his hands. Then she took a seat at a respectful distance, not too close, not too far. The balance felt right. They spoke of small things for a few minutes: school art projects, how to keep inhalers in a safe place, the best soup recipes on cold days. The conversation was gentle and even. The room seemed to exhale, the way a person does when a knot finally loosens. The nurse came back with discharge papers and a small bag that held the inhaler and a spacer. She explained again, checking that the dad felt ready. He did. The woman listened and thanked the nurse by name, reading her badge carefully. The nurse noticed and smiled. People like to be seen. When it was time to go, the boy stood with his drawing and his bear. The dad slipped the backpack over his shoulder. The woman walked with them to the exit doors, where the night air pressed cool against the skin. The parking lot lights shone like steady stars on sticks. At the sliding doors, they paused. This was where good care ends and new care begins. The boy looked up at the woman. "Will I see you again?" he asked, not as a demand, but as a hope. "Yes," she said. "We will plan it together with your dad. Maybe a short visit at the park you like. We can try the swings and count clouds." "Okay," the boy said, smiling. "I can draw a map." "I would like that," she said. The dad met her eyes. "We'll text tomorrow," he said, tapping his pocket where the note now lived. "We'll make a simple plan. We'll keep things quiet at first. The focus stays on him." "The focus stays on him," she repeated, as if the words were a promise. They said good night. The woman stood for a moment, hand on the doorframe, watching as the dad and the boy crossed the quiet lot toward an old car that still ran because he kept it running. The boy climbed in with care. The dad buckled him in and closed the door gently, like a small ceremony for safety. She turned back inside, pausing to thank the volunteer in the blue vest and the custodian with the floor machine. Her steps were steady, light, almost like she was walking on a new road drawn by a child's green crayon. In the car, the boy held the drawing and the little bear. "Daddy," he whispered, already half asleep, "today felt like when the sun comes out after a long cloud." The dad started the engine and watched the hospital glow in the mirror. "Yes," he said, keeping his voice low so the night could stay soft. "That's exactly how it felt." They drove home on quiet streets. The boy's breathing evened out, easy and warm. The dad set the heater to a kind level and let the silence be their friend. He did not try to plan the whole future in one drive. He held only what he needed to hold: the wheel, the road, the promise to build a steady path with simple steps. Behind them, the hospital settled into its late-hour rhythm. Ahead of them, morning waited with pancakes and a small inhaler and a drawing that 3 people had signed. The night felt like a gentle bridge between past and present, between worry and care, between a memory in a wallet and a phone number written fresh. And under that bridge, the water moved slow and sure, like a heart that had found a steady beat again. "You said, Part 4, KO expand crow without heading 1,300 words my in simple." The next few weeks moved like a slow, careful song. Each day carried a rhythm: work, school, dinner, bedtime, but now there was something new running under it: quiet conversations, new connections, and the promise of building bridges instead of walls. The dad kept life steady for his son. He cooked simple meals, read bedtime stories, and made sure school mornings started with warm pancakes or oatmeal. But in the back of his mind, he carried the weight of what had happened at the hospital: the surprise meeting with the woman he once knew so closely, the woman his son had pointed to and called mommy. He and the woman had agreed to move carefully. They did not announce anything to anyone. They did not want gossip or confusion. Instead, they began to build a new routine step by step, like laying bricks for a path. The first shared step. The first Saturday after the hospital visit, they met at the park. The boy ran straight to the swings, laughing as if nothing heavy had ever happened. The dad pushed him gently, and the woman stood nearby, clapping softly as the boy kicked higher. For the first time in years, the three of them were in one place, not as strangers but as people trying to find a shared rhythm. They talked while the boy played short sentences at first, testing ground. "He's strong," she said, watching him. "He is," the dad agreed. "And he's curious. He asks more questions than I can count. He has your eyes," she added. The dad paused, then nodded. "And your smile." It wasn't easy, but it was honest. Conversations of the past. Later, sitting on a park bench while the boy built castles in the sand, they finally let some of the past open. She explained how her job had pulled her across states and then overseas. "I thought I could call later, write later. But later never came. Work became a wall. I didn't mean to vanish. But I did." The dad didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "I stayed. I worked. I cooked. I counted bills. I made sure he never felt missing love." "I can see that," she whispered. "You gave him a steady ground. You've done more than I can ever thank you for." He looked at her carefully. "It's not about thanks. It's about now. What we do from this point matters more than what we missed." Building bridges. They created a small plan. She would not overwhelm the boy with sudden changes. Instead, she would join simple moments: a weekend at the park, a bedtime video call if she was traveling, a shared school event. The dad agreed, as long as the boy's routine stayed calm and steady. They also made a decision about the hospital bill. She offered to cover it fully, but he asked for something different. "Not charity," he said firmly. "A partnership. Put it under the assistance plan. I'll pay my share. You can add to it. That way, it's not a favor, it's family working together." She respected that. She even told the hospital's coordinator to mark it as a joint plan, not a gift. It was a small but important step: respect, not pity. The boy's drawing at home. The boy taped his hospital drawing to the refrigerator. Every time he passed, he pointed to the three figures under the sun. "That's us," he would say proudly. One evening, he asked, "Can mommy come to school night? We can show her my project." The dad hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We'll ask her. If she can, she'll come." When the night arrived, she came quietly, sitting at the back of the classroom. She clapped when the boy read his story out loud, just as proudly as the dad did. The boy's face glowed, and the teacher noticed the way both adults stood side by side, cheering softly. Facing the community. Not everyone understood right away. A few neighbors whispered when they saw the woman walking with them in the park. Some asked questions. But the dad kept his answers simple: "We're building family again. That's all you need to know." The woman faced questions at work too. Her colleagues were surprised when she left meetings early to attend a school event. "Balance matters," she told them firmly. "Family matters." And because she was the CEO, her words carried weight. People began to see her not just as a leader but as someone human, someone grounded. Shared strength. The dad found himself breathing easier as the weeks went on. With her support, some of the pressure lifted. He signed up for a training course through the hospital's community program. It gave him new skills and opened a chance for steadier work. He felt proud, not because someone saved him, but because he had taken a step forward with help that respected his dignity. The woman admired that. She saw the same determination she had once loved, now even stronger. "You never gave up," she told him one evening as they watched their son play soccer. "You carried him through every storm." "I had to," he said simply. "He deserved it." The promise. One night, the boy asked as he held his locket, Are we all going to be together forever? The dad knelt and looked him in the eyes. We are going to be a team. Teams don't always look the same, but they stay strong when they care for each other. The woman added softly, we will always care for you. Always. The boy smiled, satisfied, and curled up with his bear, falling asleep with peace in his face. The lesson: by the time spring came, their rhythm was smoother. Shared weekends, school events, doctor visits done together. There were still careful conversations, still gentle steps, but the bridge was real now, strong enough to walk on. The dad realized something important: walls had kept them apart for years, walls of pride, of busyness, of silence. But now, piece by piece, they were building bridges. And bridges let people meet in the middle. The woman realized something too: power and titles didn't matter at home. What mattered was kneeling to tie a shoelace, clapping at a school play, making soup when a child coughed. These were the things that built true respect. The boy, simple and wise, summed it up best one morning. Looking at his fridge drawing, he said, "The sun is brighter because 3 people are under it, not just 2. And that was the heart of it." The final part of the story can bring everything together with warmth, healing, and a gentle lesson that feels satisfying. Here's part 5 expanded in 1300 words in simple English, keeping it interesting, emotional, and engaging without any harsh or inappropriate content. The weeks turned into months, and slowly, life began to carry a new kind of balance. The boy was healthier now, his breathing steady and his laughter filling the home again. His drawings covered the refrigerator, each one brighter than the last. But the drawing from that hospital night, 3 figures under a sun, remained in the center. It was more than just crayon on paper. It was a promise of family, a symbol of hope, and a reminder that sometimes life gives back what you thought was gone forever. The dad still worked hard every day, but something inside him had changed. The heavy weight of carrying everything alone had lightened. It wasn't because all his problems disappeared, bills still came, long hours still stretched before him, but because he no longer felt like he was walking the road alone. For the first time in years, someone was walking beside him, sharing the steps, and that made every mile easier. The woman kept her word. She joined them in small but meaningful ways. On Saturdays, she came to the park. She listened to the boy talk about his favorite games, clapped at his little victories, and laughed at his silly jokes. She also made time for school events, sitting quietly at the back but cheering with her eyes. She wasn't loud, but she was present, and that was what mattered most. The dad noticed how her presence gave their son a new confidence. The boy seemed taller somehow, prouder, like the missing piece of his puzzle had been found. He no longer asked, "Where is mommy?" in uncertain whispers. Instead, he talked about her with joy. "Mommy said I draw clouds well," or "Mommy clapped when I read my story." For the dad, it was bittersweet. He had been both mother and father for so long, holding 2 roles at once. Part of him worried about sharing that space. But when he saw his son's face glow with happiness, he knew this was right. Love was not something that shrank when shared. It grew. And now his son had more of it. The first family dinner one evening, the woman invited them both to her home for dinner. It wasn't a grand place, even though she could have lived in a mansion. She chose a simple but warm apartment near the hospital so she could walk to work. When they arrived, the table was set with care, not extravagance. A small vase with fresh flowers sat in the center. She had cooked pasta, the boy's favorite, with a side of roasted vegetables. The boy was thrilled. "It smells so good," he said, climbing into his chair. The dad smiled quietly, watching his son's joy. The food was delicious, but what made the evening memorable was the feeling. For the first time, they sat together as 3, not in a waiting room, not at a park bench, but around a table. It felt simple, ordinary, and yet extraordinary. After dinner, the boy asked if they could play a board game. They chose a game of stacking blocks, laughing when the tower tumbled. The sound of their laughter filled the room, and for a moment, all the years of separation melted away. It felt like family, messy, imperfect, but full of love. Healing the past later that night, after the boy had fallen asleep on the couch with the little bear tucked under his arm, the dad and the woman sat quietly with cups of tea. The silence between them was not heavy. It was thoughtful. She spoke first. "I miss so much. His first steps, his first words, his school days. I can never get those years back." The dad looked at her. "No. But you can be here now. And that matters." She nodded, her eyes glistening. "Thank you for raising him with so much love. Thank you for not letting bitterness fill his heart." "I couldn't," he said softly. "He deserved light, not shadows. Even when I was tired, I made sure he saw love." Her voice shook slightly. "You gave him more than I ever could have at that time. And now, if you'll let me, I want to add to that light." The dad nodded slowly. "Then we move forward. Not looking back with regret, but walking ahead with care." A new routine from that night on, their lives became fuller. The boy now had bedtime stories from two voices. Sometimes the dad read to him in person, and sometimes the woman called on video to read when she was away for work. On weekends, they made pancakes together, banana, strawberry, or even blueberry when the season allowed. The boy loved mixing the batter, flour on his cheeks making him look like a little baker. The woman learned to slow down too. She began leaving work on time more often, understanding that meetings could wait but childhood could not. She found joy in small things, drawing with crayons, clapping at soccer practice, or simply sitting on the floor to play cars. She realized that success wasn't just measured in company reports or new hospital wings. True success was measured in bedtime kisses, shared laughter, and the sound of her son saying, "I love you." Challenges and growth. It wasn't perfect. There were moments of disagreement about schedules, about discipline, about choices for the boy's future. But instead of arguing, they learned to talk, to listen, to respect. The dad reminded her that routines kept children steady. She reminded him that dreams also needed space to grow. Together, they found balance. They also faced whispers from others. Some asked why she, a CEO, was spending weekends at parks instead of events. Others questioned the dad's choices, wondering if he was comfortable letting her back into their lives. But they ignored the noise. What mattered wasn't the opinions of outsiders. What mattered was the little boy sleeping peacefully each night, knowing he was deeply loved. The boy's wish. One day, the boy handed them a new drawing. This time, it was a house with 3 windows. "That's our home," he said proudly. "One window for Daddy, one window for Mommy, and one window for me. All the lights are on, so it's never dark." The dad and the woman looked at the drawing and then at each other. Their son had spoken the truth in the simplest way. It didn't matter if they lived under the same roof or not. What mattered was that every window stayed lit with love. The final lesson. Months later, on a bright spring morning, the 3 of them sat at the park again. The boy flew a kite while the dad held the spool and the woman cheered. The sky was wide and blue, the sun shining as if it too was smiling. As they watched their son laugh, the dad spoke quietly. "You know, I used to think family was something fixed, something you either had or lost. But now I see it's something you can rebuild, if you choose patience, if you choose love." She nodded. "And I used to think success was measured in titles and buildings. But now I know it's measured in the joy on a child's face, in the steady care we give." They sat in silence for a moment, just watching the boy run with his kite, the string stretching high into the sky. Finally, the boy came running back, cheeks pink with excitement. "Did you see it?" he cried. "It almost touched the clouds." "We saw," the dad said, pulling him into a hug. "We always see," the woman added, wrapping her arms around both of them. And in that moment, under the wide open sky, the three of them felt whole. Not perfect, not without scars, but whole. They had turned pain into healing, distance into closeness, and loneliness into family. The sun shone brighter that day, just as the boy had once drawn. 3 figures under it, not 2. And this time, the picture wasn't just on paper. It was real. It was alive. It was family.